Welcome to this week's lesson for the Thailand Powerlifting Federation Online Academy. And in this lesson we're talking about nutrition for powerlifting, which is often an overlooked topic within powerlifting. And if you master this, you can help improve your performance on the platform. So before I go into the lesson, I just want to apologize first about my voice. If it's a little bit harder to hear me this week, I'm going to talk as clearly as I can. I'm just unfortunately feeling under the weather right now, so I apologize about that. But I want to go through first this left side of the board here. We're going to talk about a number of different topics, and then as we go along here, I'm going to be working on this side of the board to give you examples as to what I'm talking about. There's a lot of, I wouldn't say a lot of math, but there's more math involved in this lesson. So if you want to get a pen and paper and then follow along with me, do some examples of your own, it would help you to retain the information a lot better. So let's go through here. So the first thing we're going to talk about here is the equipment you need in order to figure out your nutrition and how you should be monitoring it. So we'll talk about that first. The second thing is energy balance, which means we're talking about your calories in versus calories out. How do we calculate these, and then how do we define them in terms of macronutrients and micronutrients? The next thing we're talking about is the rule of 3500 and how that plays into how we control our body composition and how we control our rate of gain and rate of loss for our body weight, which goes to the next point here. How fast should we gain weight if we want to move up a weight class, and how fast should we lose weight if we want to make weight for a particular weight class and not lose muscle mass or impact performance while we do that. The next piece is, or the next two pieces rather, are for competition. So when you're in competition week, what are some tips and tricks you can do to dial in your nutrition a little bit further, and what are some tricks you can do in order to make weight on the scale? And then if you do like to water cut, what would you do in order to do it correctly in order to reap the most benefits from it? I'll just say right off the bat, I personally don't like water cuts, but I have some of my clients who do enjoy the process of doing it. It is a little more stressful on the body, but I do find that if you are okay with it and your body responds well to it, it's a good tool to use in order to make weight if you sit around at a bit of a higher weight normally than what you should be at competition. So let's get started here. The first point is your equipment. So how are we going to monitor our nutrition? We have to monitor two things. The first is our body weight, and then the second is the amount of calories we're ingesting into our body on a daily basis. So to monitor our body weight, we'll need a bathroom scale. So a bathroom scale is important because we're going to want to wake up every morning, weigh ourselves completely nude before we eat or drink anything, and then after we use the bathroom. All right? If we weigh ourselves on a daily basis like this, we can get a very accurate idea of where our weight is sitting at, and then we can also see how our weight will fluctuate with an influx of calories that we're going to calculate in a second. The second type of scale we're going to need is a food scale. Now, a food scale is just a small little scale that you can sit in your kitchen counter, and it should measure in fluid ounces, milliliters, and grams, specifically grams. Grams is the most accurate unit of measure for measuring food, and so we want to make sure that scale measures in that. For both these types of scales, it doesn't matter if they're not completely accurate to a competition scale. What does matter is the scale is consistent to itself. So let's say I'm in my living room here. If I step on my scale, if it says I weigh 83 kilos, great. If I go into my bathroom, weigh myself, if I weigh 83.5 kilos, that's a pretty big difference, and it's inconsistent. So make sure your scale, my scale is a little more expensive, but I purposely bought a scale like the one I have, so it is consistent and accurate to itself. So no matter where I go, I'll have the same reading of my weight. So when I make competition, I won't have any stress as to missing weight. I've never missed weight in a competition ever, and you shouldn't have to either if you do things right. So make sure your scale is consistent and accurate to itself. And the other thing is you'd like the scale to measure both in kilos and pounds. But then also, when you weigh yourself in the morning, keep the scale in the same spot in the house every single morning. In the event that for some reason the scale does change the way you perceive your weight, or how you read your weight rather, when you weigh yourself. So let's say, even though my scale is accurate and I can weigh myself in the living room or in the bathroom and it'll be the same thing, still keep it in the same spot anyway, just to be consistent about it. Obviously, when you're in a competition, it's different. But keep everything consistent in your process, like we talked about in previous videos when we talked about psychology and also training portions of this course. Just a matter of good habit. So those are your scales there. All right. The app. All right. So there's a couple of different apps that I like to use for my clients, but essentially they all do the same thing. One app is MyFitnessPal, which is a very, very common, popular app used to track calories, and another is called Fat Secret. Both of them are available on iOS and Android, and what they essentially do is they're a database of users that are inputting information about food for everybody else to use, and then you can use it too. The way it works is, let's say I'm having eggs in the morning, all right, as part of my breakfast. I can go into the app, type in the word eggs, and then if it doesn't exist in the app, meaning that for some reason no one on earth has eaten an egg before, and I have the nutrition in front of me, I can type in, like, okay, I'll create a food. I'll say I'm eating this food called eggs. I'll put in, it has this amount of protein, this amount of fat, this amount of carbs, sodium, cholesterol, whatever, right? Save it. Once this food is saved now to the app, you in Thailand or somebody else in Russia or some part of the United States here, so anybody can get access to that information that I've now put into the app. All right, so basically, the more different foods, the more people eat, the more different foods people eat, the more people put foods into these databases, the faster they grow and the more information you have or I have to use to calculate our food. So it's a really nice way of calculating food because you don't have to get a pen and paper and write it down and keep a pad with you everywhere you go. It's also good to note that if people put the information inaccurately, for example, if I put in that same egg into Fat Secret or MyFitnessPal, and I said I incorrectly put that one egg has like 20 grams of fat, for example, which it doesn't. It's more around 5 or 6. Then everybody else will get incorrect information. So for the most part, these apps are pretty accurate, but if you happen to see that when you type in a food or you scan a barcode, because you can do that with these apps too, you can scan, say, the back of a protein bar and it'll populate the data for you. Just make sure, double check that the fat, protein, and carbs are all reading accurately with what the package says and with what the app says. But it's a really nice, easy way of tracking your calories. So these are the things you're going to need. The scales, the food scale, the body weight scale, the bathroom scale rather, and then an app like that to track your calories. Because what we're going to want to do is we're going to want to get a read of where our metabolism is at. Now, I'm going to kind of skip into this point a little bit, but we're going to come back to it. The first thing I'm going to need to teach you guys is how to figure out where your metabolism's at in order to figure out maintenance calories. All right? Once we figure out our calories, then we're going to start to get into the macros and micro portion of this video. So we're weighing ourselves on a daily basis, right? And what we're going to do is do this every day for 2 weeks. Okay? This is all to determine our maintenance calories. So actually, one thing I mentioned before that I wanted to elaborate on was metabolism. Metabolism is just the rate at which your body burns energy, right? So you're burning energy even right now watching this video, sitting there doing nothing. You're burning calories when you go to the gym, and also the way your body processes food as well takes into those calories. I don't want to go into like a fair amount of detail with this because it can get quite in depth, but basically the rate at which your body burns is going to be your individual metabolism. So we have to figure out where you're at in order to determine if we're going to increase calories, decrease calories, or stay the same in order to meet our goals for nutrition, whether that's gaining weight or losing weight or staying exactly the same. So to determine all of that, We're going to weigh ourselves every day for 2 weeks, all right? And we're also going to track our calories in one of these apps for 2 weeks. Now, you don't have to worry about getting particular numbers on your calories at this point, because right now we're just determining your baseline. So we can use this baseline for future changes to your body. So now we have all this information tracked for 2 weeks. What we're going to do is we're going to take your average week 1 weight and then average week 2 weight. Oops. This is your weight. And then we're going to take total average of your calories. Okay? So we're going to have 3 numbers here. So let's just say, for example, I'm not going to be able to do all this math accurately in my head as we go along, but let's say my weight, oh my god, look at that. Terrible way to write an 8. Okay, so let's say my weight, when I average all 7 days of week 1, is 83 kilos. Alright? And then my calories for, so not my calories, my weight for week 2, when I average out the 7 days of week 2 that I've tracked, is 83.2 kilos. This says that I'm going up in weight, and I'm gaining weight over time. The reason why we take an average for each week is any changes in sodium or water loss or gain. So if you have a very salty meal that you ate a couple days in a row, maybe you couldn't go to the bathroom, something like that. Averaging out your weights for each week will eliminate any inconsistencies in your weight. So that's why we do that. Now let's say my total average calories was, let's just say for example, 2,000 calories. Alright? So this says at 2,000 calories of nutrition daily, alright, this is all 14 days added up, divided by the number of 14 to get your average calories per day. At 2,000 calories per day, I am gaining 0.2 kilos a week. Alright, so I'm in a surplus here. So this says 2,000 calories is above my maintenance level. Now to find your maintenance level, you're going to use this rule of 3,500. Now, I have to do this in pounds right now because I get myself screwed up going back and forth with kilos. But the math works the same way, it's just the proportions are different. What we're going to do here is say that I'm 0.2 kg in surplus, right? And the rule of 3,500 basically says that there's 3,500 calories in 1 pound of fat, or half a kilo of fat. Alright? And so, in theory, if you were to eliminate 3,500 calories a week from your diet, you would lose a pound or half a kilo of weight a week. This is a very general rule. Alright, for smaller lifters or bigger lifters, this may be a little bit more extreme. For a more average-sized person, this rule might apply more. But it really depends on everybody's individual metabolism. That's why I put this in quotations. It's not a true rule, but it's a good basis to go by, right? Obviously, we don't want anybody eating, let's say, 1,200 calories or less a day, because you start to go into some, extreme levels of diet. So, for the sake of just the video, use this as a very soft rule, all right? But for the video, we're gonna just play by exact the numbers here. So let's say I have 0.2 kg surplus of 3,500 calories. If I want to bring myself back down to maintenance, what I want to do is take the proportion of this over the amount of fat that I would lose in 3,500 calories. So I would divide this out by half a kg, because this is the amount of surplus that I'm in currently, and then this is the amount of weight that I would lose in one week's worth of fat from 3,500 calories. All right. This number here, which I'm not able to do in my head because I'm talking, I'm trying to focus on the video here. This number here would be the total amount of calories. Sorry, I should multiply this here. All right. So basically, looking at 40% times 3,500 calories equals the total amount of calories I am in a surplus in order to gain this amount of weight per week. All right, so we're back here. So just to reiterate one more time, we took the amount of surplus that we're in, which is 0.2 kilos, divided that by half a kilo in 3,500 calories, and multiplied it by 3,500 calories per week. That is in 1 pound or half a kilo of fat, and we got 1,400 calories. All right, now this is the amount of calories that we are in surplus for the week, on average, in order to gain 0.2 kilos a week. All right, so what we can do at this point is divide 1,400 calories by 7 days a week, and then we'll get 200 calories a day that we're in surplus for. All right, which means if this is what we're eating currently, 2,000 calories, and we subtract the 200 calories from this that we're in a surplus for already, we'll get 1,800 calories, right? So 1,800 calories would be our maintenance level of calories to keep our body weight level and not gaining any weight. All right? So this is how you determine how many calories you need in order to maintain weight. All right? I don't want to get crazy with the math right now because it can get, as you can see, it can get messy, and we can dedicate quite a bit of time to this video just on the math alone, but we can use the same rule to say how much weight should we gain going into a competition, or how much weight do we need to lose going into a competition. So if I said, using the same principle, let's say that my maintenance is 1,800 calories, and now I wanted to gain 0.2 kilos a week, because let's say I'm moving up to the 93 kilo weight class. I would add in 200 calories in order to make this gain of 0.2 kilos a week. All right? Basically, you want to use this number, the rule of 3,500, in order to control how many calories you add or subtract to your daily calories, and to manipulate your weight throughout your training block. So, that's all just calories, and we're going to get to the macros in just a minute. But before we do, I want to talk about how fast should you gain weight and how fast should you lose weight. So, the rate of gain and rate of loss. We're going to keep this pretty brief because I don't want to extend this video beyond the time that it should be. But as far as gaining is concerned, let's put them over in two separate spots. Generally speaking, I don't like my clients to gain any more than 0.5% to 1% of overall body weight per month. Now, this might seem like a very slow rate, but it's unfortunately much easier to put on fat than it is to burn off fat and to maintain your muscle. So to have your gain of 0.5% to 1% a month is a slow enough process where you can put on muscle, but it's not too fast where you're putting on a tremendous amount of fat relative to lean tissue. All right? For loss, the same numbers apply, but we're going to do this on a weekly basis. So I'd like my athletes to lose about 0.5% to 1% of their body weight per week. All right? Now, again, I'm not to go into all the math on this, but use the same 3,500 calorie rule of fat loss per week in order to determine how much you should add or subtract to your maintenance calories, which we went over before, in order to determine how much you should add or subtract to meet these goals. All right. But to give you an example, if we want to stick to the more conservative side on the weight loss, so let's say we're dieting into a competition, we would take half of this, right? So 1,750 calories of loss in a week, divide that over 7 days, and then subtract that from maintenance calories in order to determine the rate of loss that we need in order to hit this mark of 0.5% lost a week. All right. The reason why we cut at this rate is because we don't want to lose any lean tissue while we're cutting, and it's very easy for us to go into lean tissue. So to preserve that as much as possible, because we need that muscle for when we hit the competition and hit the platform, we will stick it within this range. And usually the more conservative, the better. All right. Plan out your weeks accordingly. So if you know you have to make, for example, I'm going to use my weight, 83 kilos. I have to make 83 kilos. Plan out from the competition date backwards. How long should you take to cut, depending on where you're sitting at weight right now? So let's say I'm 87 kilos, for example. If I need to lose 0.5% or 1% of body weight a week, how many weeks out is the latest I could start? All right, and you can just do a simple calculation in your phone with this by taking 87 kilos, multiplying it by, let's say on the conservative side, 0.995, which is 99.5%. That's 0.5% loss per week, and then keep hitting enter and count the number of weeks until you get to your competition weight rather, and then that's how many weeks you need in order to lose the weight. Obviously, you don't want to go crazy with these weight losses, and you don't want to extend your weight loss to a very long amount of time. So try to keep your weight within a relatively small range from your competition weight. I usually recommend no more than 2% over your competition weight to walk around at. This way it's a little bit easier for you to get down to weight and you don't have to worry about any losses in performance. Okay, so that's gain and loss. Now we're going to talk about macros a little bit, all right? Let me leave this up here. No, we'll write it down. It's all right. So, that's our calories, all right? Calories, just that unit of measure that we were talking about this entire time. For macronutrients, you have technically 4 of them, but we're going to talk about 3. The 3 important ones. Protein, carbohydrates, and fat. Each of these are very important, and they play a different type of role in your athletic career. So, on a very, very simple level, all right, very high level on this, protein is important for your muscles. It's primarily what your muscles are made of. They are made up of amino acids, and then the more protein you have within you to maintain your musculature as you diet down, the better you'll be at retaining that lean tissue. So I'm going to just be very, very high level with this. How much protein should you eat? All right. Generally speaking, you want to be about 0.8 grams to 1.2 grams per pound of body weight. All right. Now, I apologize, this is in pounds. For kilos, it'll be 1.6 grams to 2.4 grams per kilo of body weight. All right, so this is essentially the same thing. This range is considered most optimal for keeping your lean tissue as you manipulate your body throughout the competition season. And then generally speaking, if you are dieting, you want to be on the higher end of the spectrum, having more protein, because as you lose body weight, you're in a risk of now losing muscle. So keep yourself on the higher side of this spectrum if you're in a diet or on a deficit. If you're gaining weight, you're now gaining tissue to your body, and there's less of a chance of you to lose muscle. So you can afford to eat less protein. All right? Next, we have carbs. So carbs are your primary source of energy when it comes to strength movements like the power lifts or any one of the accessory movements that may be in your program. And so it's important to eat a good amount of these guys. So they're stored in your muscles as glycogen. We're going to assign the carbs last, but they are important. So if you are on a ketogenic diet, I wouldn't necessarily recommend that for powerlifting unless you do it for a health reason. But we'll come back to this one second. I just want to assign the fat first before we get to that. Generally speaking, the way you assign your macronutrients would be 1, protein, 2 is fat, and then 3 is carbohydrates. So for fat, we're going to be anywhere as low as 15% and as high as 35% of overall calories from your diet. So let's say we're having that same 2,000 calorie diet we had before. We're in a surplus. We're okay with that. Anywhere between this range is fine. Usually I have a baseline for my clients start out at 25%, and then we might increase or decrease that depending on how the individual athlete feels with certain levels of macronutrients. So fat is within this range. The reason why we assign fat before carbs is because fat is more essential to the body than carbohydrates are. Fat is used for hormonal regulation, for brain health, for joint health, and it's vital. You cannot live without having fat in your diet. You can live without carbs. So that's why carbs are assigned last. They're less vital to the body. But then, so when you assign protein and then fat, the remaining calories come from carbs. And so let me just reiterate this one more time. So the first thing we're going to do is we have our total calories. We've already determined that from the previous part of this video. 2,000 calories. Let's say let's go in the middle here for the sake of easiness, right? 1 gram per pound of body weight. I'm 83 kilos. I'm having, say, about 83 or 80 grams of protein a day. I'm thinking just in the opposite way. I'm thinking in kilos and going back and forth between the pounds. If we were thinking in kilos, it would be 2 grams per kilo of weight. All right? Sorry about that. 2 grams per kilo of weight that I have. So let's say I'm 83 kilos. I would need to eat about 166 grams of protein a day. It doesn't have to be that precise. So let's just say 165 grams of protein a day. Just to be easy, 165. So the next part will come from the fat. We'll take about 25% of my overall calories from fat. If I'm having 2,000 calories a day, that's going to be 500 calories, and then that'd be my fat assignment. And then the remaining calories will come from my carbohydrates. All right. Now, before I move on here, the last important thing about these macros is telling you how many calories are in 1 gram of each. All right. So if we were to take, let's do this. We're going to take 1 gram of each one of these macronutrients. How many calories would be in each? So there are 4 kcal in 4 calories in a gram of protein, 4 in carbohydrates, and 9 in fat. All right, so fat is more than double the caloric load per gram of fat than protein or carbohydrates. All right, so keep that in mind when you're assigning your numbers. All right, and then when you use the app in conjunction with this information here, you can see your layout of protein, fat, and carbs throughout the day, and then eat in a way that's balanced, so you're not leaving all your protein for the end of the day or eating all your fat in the beginning of the day, something like that. You'll be able to figure out exactly how to eat in a much more even way. So, I know this is a lot of information. This is one of the more numerically dense videos, and we could honestly talk about this for an hour, hour and a half at least, for each one of these topics. So, if you do have questions on this, feel free to go back, watch the video again, rewind it. You could also reach out to me on Instagram and ask me questions directly. I'm more than happy to answer any question you guys have. Instagram is Rob Alley Strength, or you can reach out on the TPF as well. Okay, so now we've got all that completed. The next thing we want to do, let's say we've done all this, we've gotten towards competition week, we're almost at weight. Let's say we're like maybe half a kilo over, a quarter of a kilo over. I want to talk about a couple of tricks of the trade in order to make weight a little bit easier on competition. So I'm only going to talk about two things here. One is going to be sodium, and the second one is going to be physical volume of food. So sodium is just salts, basically. It's very essential to the body, but it also retains water. So if you are a little bit overweight and you need to make weight the next day on the scale, the day before competition, all right, and then the morning before weigh-ins, reduce your sodium content, and you can reduce it to, let's say, you can reduce to under a gram of sodium a day, all right, for that day before competition and the morning before weigh-ins, all right. That very quick loss of sodium will help you to eliminate excess water from the body, to drop a few extra grams or kilos that you, maybe half a kilo that you may need in order to make weight on the scale, all right. I don't recommend doing this over the course of a week because your body is very, very smart, and even if you reduce sodium tremendously throughout the week, your body will retain certain levels within itself without getting into all of the details of it, because I know this video is getting on a little bit. But your body will adapt very quickly, and you won't be able to keep that up for a very long period of time. So only reduce sodium the day before a competition if you do need to eliminate a little bit of water from your body. The other thing you could do is reduce physical volume of food. So for example, if I were to take a sweet potato, weigh it on a scale, it may weigh, I'm just going to throw a number out there, let's say it weighs 3/4 of a kilo. It's a very big sweet potato, all right? It has, let's just call it, it has 50 grams of carbs in it. If I were to take that same amount of carbs and apply it to some other food that weighs less, let's say like rice cakes, for example, the rice cakes may weigh 60 grams overall when you weigh it on the scale, but it may it'd be the same 50 grams of carbs you might get from the sweet potato. So you could see that, you know, the sweet potato, while it gives the same energy, it will weigh less. The sweet potato will weigh more in your stomach, and so now you have all that dead mass sitting in your stomach, which would add to your weight on the scale. So again, when you're the day before competition, reduce volume dramatically if you need to, and have more calorically dense foods, like say the rice cakes, when in comparison to sweet potatoes, and you'll eliminate all that dead mass from your body that's not tissue or muscle or anything like that, and so it'll help you to make weight a little bit easier. And that's what I normally do when I try to make weight, and it works every single time. I actually have the Arnold this week, and I'm doing that this week as well, so this video came in at a very interesting time. The second approach you could take to losing some weight is water cutting. Now, water cutting is not my favorite way of cutting weight because it's a little stressful on the body because you have to constantly ingest water, but the idea behind it is to increase your body's production of a hormone called renin, and renin regulates the amount of times and the frequency at which you urinate. All right. So what you would do for a water cut is 1 week out, you start drinking about a gallon of water a day. When you get to about 5 days out, you start drinking about 2 gallons of water a day. 2 days out, you drink 3 gallons of water a day. And then the day before your weigh-ins, you drink only half a gallon of water a day. And what you do is you sip on this gallon or however many gallons throughout the day. You don't chug the water as fast as possible, but you just keep a steady influx of water going into your body, so you're constantly peeing. All right? And when you bring in a whole bunch of water like this, and you keep bringing in exceedingly more amount of water into your body's levels of renin get increased, and you constantly pee more frequently. And then that day before your competition, when you only have half a gallon of water in you, your body will still be peeing at the same level as it would be with 3 gallons of water being ingested a day, because it's now acclimated and adapted to this amount of water that you've brought into the body. Renin levels will still be high, and so now you'll urinate out a lot more water from your body than you normally would, thus dropping your body weight down pretty tremendously within a day. You could also do that same sodium manipulation I mentioned earlier, that day before the competition and the morning of the competition itself, before weigh-ins. I don't recommend that, only because even 1% loss of water in the body can reduce performance. So that's why I don't recommend it. It's also stressful because you're constantly ingesting water and your digestive system is constantly being flooded. And you have to constantly get up in the middle of the night and pee, because even when you get up in the middle of the night, you got to keep drinking because you need the influx to be continuous. So it disrupts your sleep and your recovery as well. So that's why I really don't recommend it as much, but if you do want to give it a shot, that's the way that you would do it. And that would be the way you cut into competition. After weigh-ins are over, get in a good amount of sodium, nothing crazy, anywhere between 2 and 3 grams is fine. Have quick acting carbs like sugars and some electrolytes throughout the competition in order to keep yourself hydrated and maintaining a healthy potassium-sodium balance in your body. Don't ever eat any foods that are abnormal for you. So if you're used to eating a particular way, keep eating that way, because you don't want your body to be thrown out of whack in the middle of a competition and have, basically you don't want to go through any like GI or gastrointestinal upset during competition, because nothing will make you perform worse than a sour stomach. So keep everything pretty neutral, pretty normal to what you do on a daily basis. I know this video is getting on to a good amount of time here, so thank you guys very much for tuning into this week's lesson on nutrition. Like I said, I know this video was pretty heavy in the math, so go back and watch this one a couple of times if you need to, or feel free to reach out to myself on Instagram through my handle, RobAlleyStrength, or through my email, RobAlleyStrength@gmail.com. I'd be happy to answer any questions you guys have in detail, or you can reach out through the TPF website or Instagram as well. Alright? Thank you guys very much. I hope this helped you to clarify some ideas as to how to cut weight better for competitions, how to prioritize your nutrition, and best of luck in your training and your future competitions.